How would you characterize the significance of this deal?
It's a huge deal. I mean, to think that we might have a multilateral agreement with close to 140 countries each day, we're getting more, that they will agree on a global minimum tax, it's significant. And, the trick is going to be what we see today. Today's going to be a big day to get the inclusive framework and actually be able to read more, hopefully more details on how this is going to work.
You know, many countries are skeptical on the U.S. side of things that the U.S. administration under President Biden may not be able to ratify the OECD agreement should it get to Congress. How do you see it playing out in the U.S.?
Well, I think there's a big difference between the two pillars. So pillar two is the global minimum tax. 15% is the big headline. Getting Ireland on board yesterday is significant. There's a lot of US multinationals that have operations in Ireland. I see that getting implemented a lot quicker. Still, though, it's going to take time. It's probably at least a 2-year implementation. Each country will have to enact laws that they adopt the 15% or greater. But it really changes the game on competitiveness on the tax rate. Pillar one is actually where we're really anxious to see what's in the paper today, because that is going to have more complexity. So that's giving taxing rights to the distribution subsidiaries or arms of the multinational companies and really reallocating profits to those distribution arms. So that will be interesting to see how that gets depicted. There's a lot of questions. That is tremendously complex. That's also where countries would have to give up their digital services taxes. Big deal, especially in the EU with the levy.
Well, you bring me straight to my next question around the digital services taxes. Do you see this leading to a dismantling of these? I mean, that's what we heard from governments throughout this process, that we would see them rein those back in should we get global agreement.
That was definitely the sentiment, and back in July, that's what we were hearing. But I think that there's going to be a lot more work needed. Our expectations have been managed over the summer in terms of what to expect for today. So we think that's going to have to be remanded back for further consideration before agreement is finally reached on that aspect. But we'll see what's in the paper today. But it's so complex that I think that countries are going to need more time. But the idea was they were supposed to give up their digital services taxes to have these new rights and be able to tax these rights along the lines that was in the original July, communique.
Certainly, I remember you and I talking about that back then, this promise, France very vocal about it, that as soon as they got global agreement, they would rein their unilateral digital services tax back in. Looking at what this means for companies, do you think, based on your conversations with clients and all the work you're doing with huge multinationals, are they prepared for these changes? And I know there's still a lot of uncertainty. We're still waiting for the paper, but just how prepared are they for the range of outcomes that we could see?
Well, I think companies are really looking at this hard, anxious about today, want to see it, hoping there's sufficient detail so they'll know what to do. Their stakeholders want to know. So what we're seeing companies do right now is they're modeling this out. They're trying to understand it, but this is going to be big because remember, taxes like artwork, I mean, how 140 countries interpret the same words on paper are going to be very different. So even if we think there's going to be alignment, I think what we learned from the first project is, this can be in the eyes of the beholder, and how it gets implemented could be very different. Companies are worried about double taxation.